Hello everyone. I put out a recipe for breakfast pie, what I call breakfast pie, a couple of days ago on the website, and I thought that I would show you a demonstration of how I make said pie. So I'm going to start the oven at 350, and while I'm prepping the work, I get the oven going. So this particular one is going to be the broccoli and cheese with spinach. And so I already pre-steamed my broccoli, and before I put the broccoli from the pan into the bowl, I put spinach underneath it. And so when the hot broccoli went on top of it, it melted and kind of got the spinach to wilt a little. I take my handy dandy knife, and all I'm doing here is breaking up the pieces to smaller pieces. It is not fully steamed, it is mostly steamed. So this is, when I buy broccoli from the store, I usually get a package that's wrapped in plastic, and that package has 2 separate crowns in it, and I usually take the bigger of the 2 to make my breakfast pie. What I'm trying to end up with is enough vegetables to go into this 9-inch pie plate, and I use a store-bought crust. I don't make my own crust. And then I typically eat 1/4 of this as a breakfast every day for 4 days in a row. I usually alternate between broccoli and mushrooms. I have in the past not had broccoli, not had mushrooms. I've used green squash or summer yellow squash. I have used some potato that has been prior pre-boiled or parboiled or par-cooked, whatever way you choose. So again, all I'm doing here is just chopping up these pieces into smaller pieces, the florets into smaller pieces. If you're going to ask the question, I'll tell you up front, I never use frozen broccoli because that would water down the eggs and they might not set if they were from frozen. Now, if you're going to use frozen, you certainly can, but I recommend having them defrosted if you're going to use frozen before you go and start doing this. So again, my oven is preheating. This is directly out of the refrigerator. I have got my pieces to what I consider small enough. It will somewhat cook in the oven because it goes in there for 40 minutes to 50 minutes, depending on how filled the pan is. You can use an 8-inch pie crust, but what you're looking for, this is approximately 2 to 3 cups of vegetables. So I am trying to get my 5 a day, and I use 8 ounces of mushrooms, 8 ounces of asparagus, generally speaking. If I don't have asparagus with mushrooms, I will use summer squash or green squash, and I usually use 1 large one, and that usually gives me that same pound of vegetable. So this is probably a little bit more, but again, the spinach didn't really wilt all the way, so it is bulked up a little bit because I buy a 5-ounce bag of spinach and throw in 1/3 to 1/3 of it. I don't measure, so I don't know exactly, but I cut up these vegetables, so this is ready to go. I'm gonna prep my eggs while my oven is still heating up and preheating. So I use 8 eggs. Occasionally, if my eggs are really small, I use 9 or 10, because sometimes they're really small. So generally 8 I have some really large ones in here, so I will probably only use 8 of the largest ones. And I usually just check to see what they look like once I put them in the bowl. So I'm getting it ready. That's kind of a small one. And I will scramble these eggs. Now, I can and do occasionally add in what cream cheese dip, you know, like a chive and onion dip or garlic dip that's cream cheese based. I don't always do that, but sometimes I do if I have leftover in the refrigerator and I'm trying to get rid of stuff that's been sitting around a while. Otherwise, I don't put it in there. So for me, this is, like I said, it ends up being about 4 breakfasts for me. So I have 8 eggs in this bowl. I can already tell I'm gonna need another one because I can tell by the volume. I use this bowl all the time. So I'm gonna take this smaller egg and I'm gonna crack a 9th egg. But again, I kind of know this particular, I use these particular bowls, so I kind of know exactly how much I need. I use about a half a teaspoon of pepper, and I don't necessarily measure it, but I'll measure it for the purpose of this video. I just kind of throw in what I like to taste. Again, I use when I steam these vegetables, I put nothing on it. So no butter, no salt, no pepper, no spices. So I want about a teaspoon and a half of salt for this whole thing. And I'm just gonna shake it out to my taste. All right, and then I'm just gonna beat up these eggs, just whip them up while I'm waiting. Now you'll notice that on my counter, I don't have the pie crust. Pie crust always works better, gets crispier, and always, always sets up better in your oven if it is cold. So I often wait until my stove is saying 255, it's getting up there degree by degree. I often wait until the very, very end to actually pour the pie into the pie plate until my temperature comes up to speed, because then I'm gonna immediately stick it in the oven and go. So I have my eggs thoroughly mixed, just scrambled up. Yes, they're black because I had a lot of pepper in there, but I love the pepper for taste. All up to you. I'm going to now add in all of this bowl into this bowl. So these 8 eggs, basically you're getting about 2 eggs per serving. You're getting around a half a cup to 3/4 of a cup of vegetables per serving. And then for extra zazz, I add whatever cheddar cheese I have, sharp, mild, Colby Jack, whatever I have shredded on hand, generally of the cheddar. And in this case, this is a 7-ounce bag, and I did about half of it on my last pie. So I'm gonna pour the balance of it in, because this is a smaller bag than I normally buy, but I went to a different grocery store, or it could have been that when I went to the grocery store with the other one, they were out of the brand I use, and so I am now just going to fill it in. So again, this is just mixed up with the egg. Now this is super, super tight. There is not a lot of egg showing. And normally I like to have just, you can see it where everything is kind of at the egg or under the egg. Part of the reason why it's like that is because the spinach didn't fully, I didn't steam it. Sometimes I'll throw it on top in the steamer and steam it with the broccoli, but I didn't do that, so you can see that the pieces of the spinach are sort of sticking up. They're not laying in or under the egg mixture. This is very, very loose, so I'm gonna put an extra egg in there. So that was 10 eggs on this one. And I'm doing that just to cover the eggs, make sure all the vegetables get covered with egg. And so you can clearly see now, all of my vegetables are really good covered with egg. No, it is not loose. No, I do not add milk. I want this to tighten up and basically solidify, and all the egg will be at the bottom and your vegetables will sort of be throughout. So I now have my mixture ready. My stove is at 322. I'm going to pull out the pie crust from the refrigerator, and any store brand will do. You can make your own. You can certainly spend the time and make your own pie crust. I don't. I just buy the store-bought kind, and I go ahead and I just cut that open, and quickly you have your pie ready. This will do an 8 or a 9-inch pie. All store brands are the same size. So they will do an 8 or a 9-inch pie crust, pie pan. This one happens to be a 9-inch. I like the bigger one. I could put more stuff in it. I do have smaller ones, but I prefer this one because it is my biggest one. I only have one large one and the rest of them are smaller. So when I unroll it so that it is sort of unrolled upside down. I know a lot of people do it differently, but I try to make the edges even as possible. Push down in the center, and pushing down in the center to make sure that my pie crust is just sort of level in the container. And then I am going to roll my crust under. My mother always rolled it over. It doesn't matter, however you prefer it. But you do kind of want it to stand up. And the reason why is I have a lot of ingredients in here. And these are going to come pretty close to the top. So I try to puff it up a little bit by putting the crust up a little higher and just kind of lean it, but I tuck it under and not tuck it over. So it doesn't matter, whatever you prefer. I would just make it stand up. Okay, so my pie crust is in my pan. Zip all my ingredients right in here in the center. And then I lay it flat and voila, I have breakfast pie, and you can clearly see that the ingredients fit in this 9-inch pie absolutely perfectly. So this is the perfect breakfast for me. My stove is up to 349 degrees. I'm going to literally open my stove and put it right in. Now, because this isn't very liquidy, I have more vegetable than I have egg, and it's not liquidy. I put a timer on for 40 minutes, and then I check it in 40. See if the eggs are set. If the eggs are set, I take it out. Occasionally, I have to cook it an extra 5 to 10 minutes. It just depends. Depends on how much moisture is in those vegetables. It depends on how much, egg I have in there. It just depends. So in general, I will let it go 40 minutes, check it with a knife. If it comes out clean, bang, we're done, because it will be brown within the 40 minutes. If not, I go an extra 5 to 10 minutes, just depending on how unset the center is. Thanks for watching. This is Renee with Crafted by Renee. Have a great day, everyone.